1 minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the place, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Football Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Manny Rodriguez, Moist Mike, rocking and rolling with me. We'll be here all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Former Packers fullback John Kuhn going to stop by 20 minutes from now. Danny Cannell will stop by in hour number 2 of our radio program. All righty. I want to start off with a game that I'm very excited about this weekend, and it's when the Chicago Bears are visiting legendary Lambeau Field with the Green Bay Packers. For the Packers, we know what's on the line. It's a playoff spot. We have discussed with the Green Bay Packers how they are in a really good spot for their future with what we've seen down the stretch with Jordan Love and what Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst were building and are trying to continue to build with life after Aaron Rodgers. So we already addressed the Packers side of it. Now let's get into the Bears side. Because the Chicago Bears, it's really a 3-step process. Number 1, will Ryan Poles be back? Number 2, will Matt Eberflus be back? And then number 3, what are you going to do with the number 1 overall pick that you got from Carolina that will dictate if Justin Fields is the quarterback or not next season for the Chicago Bears? And there are arguments to be made on both sides. I have voiced my opinion before, and I do believe that the Chicago Bears should keep Justin Fields. But just because I say that doesn't mean that Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles will say that. But from a standpoint of logic, when you're probably bringing back Poles and you're probably bringing back Eberflus, you should then probably bring back the quarterback. And I was not someone who, when we were like 6-7 weeks into the season, that I thought Justin Fields was going to be the quarterback of this team next year. And the argument was, we still don't know what Justin Fields is, but he's not going to get it to work in Chicago. And quite frankly, from afar, it didn't seem like Ryan Poles nor Matt Eberflus really knew what they were doing either. But things could change really quickly in this league. And it would not surprise me depending on the result of Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, if the opinions will change. Because let's say the Bears win. The calls and the contingent of people that believe that Justin Fields should be the starter next year are just going to get louder, and they're going to grow exponentially. But you know how we are. We are in a reactionary society. We are an in-the-moment society where one thing happens and it could potentially devalue an entire season. And it could flip your world upside down. And we've seen this from both sides, where for a large chunk of the season, you could be negative about something, and then your opinion changes and you're positive, or the other way, where you start to get positive, you start to move in one direction, and then something bad happens in the final game of the season, even though it won't impact, right, the Bears, because the Bears aren't a playoff caliber team, but you say, all right, that just goes back to my initial belief that Justin Fields shouldn't be the quarterback. So I do believe Sunday is very big, but regardless of what happens on Sunday, and I could only tell you how I feel now, how I feel in the moment. And sometimes I give you a take on the radio. I have great conviction and great belief in what I'm saying that day. And sometimes it changes the next week. Sometimes it changes the next day. Sometimes it changes the next hour. Because events happen and you may think one way, and I'm not stubborn, but once I see something else occur, a light bulb could go off in my head and I could say, oh, whatever I just said in the past doesn't hold true anymore. And now I change my belief on what I think the Bears should do. But I don't think that's going to happen outside of a massacre on Sunday night. Like if Fields gets on the field on Sunday and he throws 4 picks in Lambeau Field and he has like 85 yards passing, I will allow my opinion to potentially change. But I'm like 96% sure that this is the right way that the Bears should approach it. And let me be abundantly clear. When the Chicago Bears were 3-8, I would have never said these 3 things that I'm about to say. Number 1, keep Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles pulled off that deal last year at the number 1 pick spot to get a lot of future picks, get DJ Moore, and also get this number 1 overall pick that you're going to have in addition to your other first-round pick. So I'm good to see another year of Ryan Poles. Number 2, keep Matt Eberflus. And this is the one I think I'm most surprised about, because when Matt Eberflus was hired, I didn't believe Matt Eberflus was going to be a successful head coach. And he still has a long ways to go in being a successful head coach. But I just thought he was a guy that was more equipped and better fit to be a really strong defensive coordinator, but he didn't come off to me as head coach material. But that's also not my job to find who's going to be a head coach. And there's a lot of times where the quote-unquote popular hire ends up being just a bad hire, and everyone wants the guy fired within 2 to 3 years. But it does seem like whenever it's, who's this guy? Who the heck did we just hire? Oh, that doesn't seem like they got the best candidate available. Those are the coaches that turn out to be the better coaches. Like, I know Nick Sirianni is starting to have things get away from him in Philadelphia, but he's made the playoffs his first 3 years on the job and coached in a Super Bowl. I don't think anyone knew who Nick Sirianni was when he got hired in Philadelphia. Mike McDaniel, no one thought this guy had a clue what he was doing when he was hired. Dan Campbell, he even made the joke at his introductory press conference, most of you probably thought I was Matt Campbell. Maybe the Lions thought I was Matt Campbell, the Iowa State coach, and that's why they hired me. So you don't need to be well known. You don't have to be well respected. You don't have to be well received when you get announced as a head coach. But you don't really have much in Chicago. And something that should be used as a positive for Matt Eberflus is in year one, it wasn't good. But in year two, with some slight, and I mean slight roster changes, this team was 3-8. And this team could have quit. This team could have had no life in the second half of the season. And then in all likelihood, we're talking about cleaning house in getting rid of Poles, getting rid of Eberflus, and then also getting rid of Justin Fields. But to Eberflus's credit, this team has now won 4 out of their last 5 games. And they have gone from being a 3-8 team to a 7-9 team. And quite frankly, when you look at this team, regardless if it's 8-9 after this weekend or if it's 7-10 after this weekend, the Bears probably should not be a 7 or an 8-win football team, but they are. So I got to see Matt Eberflus back next year, and I also have to see the quarterback, Justin Fields, back as well. I'll make a comparison in just a second. But first, let's hear from the president of the Chicago Bears, Kevin Warren. There was a report last week from Ian Rappaport that it appears like Matt Eberflus will be back next year as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. But the other day, the president of the Bears, Kevin Warren, was asked, will his head coach be back in 2024?
As we said all along, we just continually will stay focused on finishing the season strong, take a big picture, a methodical look at everything. And I'm very pleased with the energy of our team. Guys are playing hard, they're competing, but I'm just really energized kind of as a franchise where we are.
So that wasn't a yes. He didn't emphatically go out and address reporters and say, Matt Eberflus will be back. Matt Eberflus is my guy. That's my ball coach. That's the guy that's going to return the Chicago Bears back to glory. But he didn't say no. And sometimes when you have a president speaking about the future of a coach or a GM or a player, you could usually decipher through the BS. And when I listened to that 20-second chunk of audio, I think there's enough context clues in there that would suggest to me that Kevin Warren, as long as he's still the president of the Bears, is happy with the direction of this franchise, is happy with the energy of this team. You know, big picture, it does make a lot of sense to keep this regime there. And I would probably venture to say, like 85%, 90%, that Matt Eberflus is going to be back next year as the head coach. Now, as for the quarterback, I do think it's up in the air. As I have said now for the last 10 minutes, as I've said now for the last 2 weeks, I believe the Bears should keep Justin Fields. But I think that's at like 65%. 65% in the likelihood that they do keep Justin Fields, because on the other side, you're looking at what people are saying is a generational talent in Caleb Williams. And it's one thing to be called a generational talent and then actually follow through on that, as we've seen through the last 10, 15, 20, 25 years of the NFL draft. But knowing that, you got 2 years left in this contract with that fifth-year option being factored a part of the 2 years, you are eventually going to have to make a financial decision where you want to continue to employ Justin Fields. You're going to have to ante up and pay him a lot of money. And right now, Justin Fields deserves that other opportunity next year to be the starting quarterback. But there's a difference in deserving an opportunity and then are you willing to pay Justin Fields this offseason, which the Bears don't have to do. But a lot of times, teams don't have to pay a player right now in the present moment, and they end up doing so. So here's the comparison I'm going to make. Last year, the Detroit Lions got off to a really bad start. You had Dan Campbell, who was a popular coach because of the way that he handled himself at the podium, but the results weren't reflecting on the field. It's very similar to the Chicago Bears. And I'm not saying Eberflus was very popular, but in year number 2 of a head coach, they weren't taking that next step. And then down the stretch, the Detroit Lions got very hot. They won 5 out of their last 6 games. And in the final game of the season, they walked into Lambeau Field. And even though they weren't going to the playoffs, they ended the Green Bay Packers season. So you look at this on the other way with the Chicago Bears now. They were also off to a putrid start at 3-8. Looked lifeless, looked like there was no future. And now this team has won 4 out of 5 games down the stretch. And oh yeah, by the way, if they walk into Lambeau Field on Sunday and walk out with the victory, that would be winning 5 out of their last 6 games. And maybe the momentum that we saw that was built down the stretch with Detroit that carried over into next season can also help it happen to go down with the Chicago Bears. But I think that's also dependent on continuing this locker room and this good team chemistry and this good direction of this franchise and keeping what you have in place. Keeping Ryan Poles, keeping Matt Eberflus, and most importantly, keeping Justin Fields as your quarterback who is well received in that locker room, has the respect of that locker room, and right now is winning games. And oh yeah, by the way, getting him help in the draft too. Last year you got him help with future picks and DJ Moore. Now, go get Marvin Harrison Jr. You go get Marvin Harrison Jr., we could go into a Bears season next year where you got the quarterback and you got 2 stud wide receivers and you have a coach who's starting to figure it out. And I'm not saying you're going to take it to the level of the Lions this year when you're winning 11, 12 games and you're going to have a top 4 seed and you're going to be NFC North champs. I'm not saying that. But there's no reason why this Bears team can't continue to build off that momentum that they've established here in the final 5-6 games of the season and carry it over into next year to compete for a wild card spot. But you get rid of the quarterback, you get rid of the coach. I just don't think it's likely when you're resetting in some extent that this team ends up making the playoffs. And that's another part of it. I know you could get oohed and awed by what is the future and maybe the potential, the unknown of, for example, a Caleb Williams or a Drake May. But what you have right now is pretty damn good. And sometimes, and it's working too, and sometimes in life, you're in a good situation and you strive for more. You strive for what other people are telling you is better. And sometimes you go for what's better. And then a few years from now, you look back and you go, man, we had something special brewing. We had something really, really good working. And because of our desire to get something better and not appreciate what we had in the moment, it changed and it derailed what we were doing. So Chicago, I don't care what happens on Sunday outside of this being like 45-3 and absolutely humiliating. As long as this is close, as long as this is within 10, 14 points, right, 2 touchdowns, the plan from what I've seen down the stretch should be Poles be back, Eberflus be back, and I think both will, but then the big domino to fall is Justin Fields, and they should be fielding trade phone calls at the draft, not for Justin Fields, but for the number 1 overall pick, and the Bears should keep Justin Fields. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. What do you think the Bears should do? Should they keep Justin Fields or should they trade him while his stock right now is going through the roof? And then maybe you go get Caleb Williams or a Drake May in the draft. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We will touch on the other side of the Bears game this upcoming weekend with the Green Bay Packers having a chance to go to the playoffs. And we'll do so with legendary Packers fullback John Kuhn, who will join us in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All right, gearing up for the big game on Sunday between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in a legendary Packers fullback. And that, of course, is John Kuhn, friend of the show, kind enough to jump on board with us. John, happy Friday to you. Appreciate the time. How you been?
Happy Friday. Happy New Year. Always glad to jump on here with you, Zach. And hey, look at how big time you've got now. We do this thing live over the internet versus the airwaves. A whole different vibe, a whole different feel. Good to put a face to a name now.
Well, I appreciate that, and always appreciate how kind you are jumping on with us. And usually it was talking about all this drama in Green Bay with your old teammate and good friend at Aaron Rodgers. But now look how this works. For 2-3 years, people were saying Gutekunst had no clue what he was doing, and now a lot of people with the play of Jordan Love are issuing a little bit of an apology to the Packers GM, Brian Gutekunst.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a recipe to this whole franchise quarterback thing. You have a good one, you get one before you're done with the old one. You let him learn for a couple years under the tutelage of that older one. You let him learn the process off the field, in the meeting rooms, at practice. And then you give him a chance in his third or fourth year and see what he can do on the field when he merely has to focus at things on the field versus the things in the classroom and the things on the practice field. So it's worked a couple times in a row now. And Jordan Love, especially in the last 7 games of the season, has really proven that to a point.
We saw the Lions last year towards the end of the season get hot, and they won 5 out of 6 games, and that carried over with the momentum that they were doing into the next season. When you look at Green Bay, and they have a chance to go make the playoffs on Sunday and win 5 out of continue to get hot down the stretch. What have you seen with this team in the last few weeks where they've started to turn around and just play better football?
Well, specifically, it's been the play on the offensive side. Jordan Love's not the only young piece, the only inexperienced piece heading into this season. There's a lot of rookies on this offense. When you talk about tight end, wide receiver, even on the offensive line. So they all had to kind of collectively work together to grow and become a cohesive unit. And that cohesiveness has really taken place these last 2 months of the season, and they've kind of taken off. They've had a couple struggles, a couple hiccups in the last month of the season in December against Carolina and against Tampa Bay and against the New York Giants defensively. But if they can play a little bit more aggressive on the defensive end this week against Chicago, get themselves another victory. I've talked to a lot of coaches. I've talked to a lot of personnel in Green Bay. A playoff game, that type of experience in your first year as a starter for Jordan Love and a lot of these young guys on this offensive side, that'll pay dividends exponentially going down here in the future. So getting this playoff game is huge, but it's been the play of Jordan Love and this young offense coming alive, which is why they are in the position they're in.
Talking to John Kuhn right now. Going into the year, I said, I don't really care about the wins or losses for the Packers this year, and it's incredible they have a chance to go make the playoffs coming up on Sunday. But it was more so at the end of the year, how do I feel about the quarterback? Do I think the quarterback has enough to be the guy moving forward? And you get the best of both worlds right now. Like, how far are you willing to go with Jordan Love? And like, what do you think his ceiling could be as the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers?
I'm going all the way with Jordan Love, Zach. He showed things early on that a special type of athlete can show. And that came about 1 every 4 plays. And then we had a dip in the middle of the season where he had some struggles with turnovers and he had some struggles with getting the ball out on time. And then he learned about midway through the season, I don't need to be perfect on every single play. I can use my check down. I can facilitate this offense even when it's muddy. And as the season progressed even further towards the end of the year, he's gotten so good before the snap of the football, of recognizing the defense, getting in the right checks, that he is now mentally and physically there so that 3 out of every 4 plays are something that a good and established veteran quarterback is doing. And I'm willing to say right now, I expected Jordan Love to be good at some point in time. I did not expect it to happen as fast as it has this season. And Jordan Love right now towards the end of the season, I dare to say he's playing as good a football as nearly any quarterback in the National Football League right now. And going into next year, there's no reason why he can't improve even more.
Also, I think it's important when you look at all the drama since there was that decision to draft Jordan Love and all the fighting with, LaFleur and Gutekunst and Rodgers, that created a little bit of an unhealthy locker room. And Love could have handled it 1 or 2 ways. I think him being quiet and him just, going to work and working each and every day in the role they were asking him, I think that gained him a lot of trust and respect in that locker room. When they officially elected to trade Aaron Rodgers, it was like, okay, we have a guy that we could believe in because of the way he conducted himself the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, one thing this whole country is going to learn about Jordan Love is he is a very even keel person. He doesn't get very emotional. You don't see a whole lot of highs or lows out of him, no matter how a football game is going, no matter how the chaos is externally. It's always calm and collected on the inside. And, you know, some of that has to do with his age, being much closer to a lot of the younger players on the offensive side. They have a great relationship, a great rapport. Jordan Love, it came out this week, has been hosting dinners at his house on Monday nights and invites not only the offense but the defensive players to come over too, to try and really create that cohesiveness that a team really needs, that bond that a team really needs. And it's been refreshing to see a team kind of rally around each other, because Jordan Love had to prove himself as much as anybody else on this football team this year. That hasn't been the case at the quarterback position in Green Bay for a very long time. So for people to see Jordan Love earning his stripes while they are simultaneously earning their stripes, that is something that goes a long way. And you root for one another in those aspects. And you can definitely feel a tighter-knit offensive group this year than what you have in years past.
Wrap it up with John Kuhn, who joins us right now on CBS Sports Radio. Let me talk about your friend Aaron Rodgers a little bit. I know he got in this whole controversy this week because he opened his mouth with McAfee, and then he's talking about the Epstein list with Kimmel, and it's just things you can't do, but he, of course, did them anyway. Obviously, it stinks that the guy got hurt. I never thought he was going to return this year. We know he's always going to say what he wants to say. How do you think the next year or two, in what could be the last 2 years of Aaron Rodgers' NFL career, which has been a great one, are going to play out? Like, what do you kind of expect from Rodgers next season?
Well, I hope he has a healthy season. I hope he gets to play all 17 games, because I'd like to see how he can perform and how he can go out here in New York. And this is retirement talk that we've been talking about for a couple years in Green Bay and now in New York. And with the injury, you never like to see somebody go out like that. So I'd like to see him go out in his own terms. I'd like to see him come back next year, be 100% healthy, and not have to miss any time for the New York Jets. Because quite frankly, with that roster and that team, I thought they were poised to make a playoff run in New York. And without him, you can clearly see it's a much different picture. So I'd like to see what he's able to do in a new environment and see if he can't add a little piece to his legacy.
Let me ask you about two former Packers that have been tied to New York potentially. I think Bakhtiari is definitely going to be on the Jets next year. Davante Adams, I know he's under contract, and a pretty large contract may that be, after that deal that he got from the Raiders. But as long as the Raiders keep Antonio Pierce, I think Adams will stay with the Raiders. Just how about the future of two guys that you know well, in Davante Adams and David Bakhtiari?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about Davante. He has publicly come out and said Antonio Pierce is his guy. He'd like to see him back next year. He thinks he's earned that job. And right now, if you're Raiders management, you got to think more about how do we keep this team that has played well towards the end of the year? How do we keep them together going forward? And a change at the coaching staff could definitely blow everything up roster-wise for that team. So I think Antonio Pierce ends up staying. I think they learned from their mistakes with Rich Bisaccia letting him go a few years back. And I think that keeps their team together, especially Davante Adams. With David Bakhtiari, it becomes very interesting because the guy's had 4 surgeries in a matter of, about 2.5 years. He's only played a handful of games, a little over a dozen games in the last 3 years since he was the highest paid left tackle in all of football. So he's been very adamant and very vocal about his disdain with playing on turf, especially the turf in New York. It would be very interesting to me if he had to swallow those words and kind of eat some crow to go up there and play too. Obviously, that would take some sort of releasing by the Green Bay Packers first, or a trade or a forced trade in that nature. And I'm just not sure how likely all of those combined play into one another.
And then last thing I'll ask you, just to get the flip side of this Bears-Packers game coming up on Sunday. We talked about the Green Bay side with you. The Chicago side, right? Like we talked about the Raiders, how you don't mess what's going well with Antonio Pierce. I think the Bears should bring back Justin Fields now, with them having an opportunity, if they walk out of Lambeau with the victory on Sunday, to win 5 out of 6 down the stretch. Would you keep Fields and maybe draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade that number 1 pick again? How would you approach it if you were the GM?
Well, this is going to be a fascinating development after the season because everybody knows when you take a coaching job or a GM job in Chicago, number one goal is to beat Green Bay. You have to go up north and win and get some victories. And I think they haven't won against Green Bay in their last 9 attempts. If they find a way to come up to Green Bay and they have a matchup that could potentially upset the Green Bay Packers this weekend, if they can come up here and get a victory, that makes it really tough on the ownership, on the management to say, hey, Justin Fields, we got to move on from you. Matt Eberflus, we got to move on from you. I think they might consider it more to keep all of these guys around and build around Justin Fields if they can come to Green Bay and get a victory. If they don't, and I truly believe this game matters in the future for Justin Fields, if they don't, and he goes 0 for his career against the Green Bay Packers as the Chicago Bears quarterback, I don't think there's any way they keep him. I think they're drafting, they're picking a quarterback there early in the first round, whether they trade back and do that. We've seen them do crazy stuff in the past in the draft. So I wouldn't hold it against them to do anything. But I have to feel like Justin Fields, if he's going to coach or play football in Chicago in the future, he's got to get this victory this weekend in Green Bay.
And it's kind of crazy. And I was talking about this to open up the show, John Kuhn. Last week, the fans are chanting, we want to keep Fields. We want Justin. They lose this game this weekend. Things change very quickly in the NFL, as you know.
It is a week-to-week league more than anything, more than any other sport. And that last taste in your mouth, especially when it's a division opponent, especially when it's that division opponent that it's said and written on your walls that you need to go up and get those victories against, that one can sit really sour, and that can promote a lot of changes when you come into the offseason.
Hey, last thing just one more thing that popped into mind, John Kuhn. We talked about the Gutekunst side. What's the fan perspective of LaFleur right now?
It's rode a roller coaster throughout the year. It really has. I would say there was more optimism and patience at the beginning of the season, but there was really a stretch there where fans thought we were underperforming. And fans are sometimes a little impatient when it comes to the development of young players. But as this team has really taken off and this offense is on the cusp of hitting a top 10 offense in the National Football League, they're starting to realize that Matt LaFleur, he can scheme up some stuff. And with Jordan Love and these young wide receivers, they're going to be able to accomplish things offensively going forward. I think more of the heat lies on LaFleur as it pertains to the rest of his coaching staff and what he's going to do there with a defensive coordinator. Joe Barry's contract is up at the end of the year. And where does he go from there? Because if there is some sort of retention there for Joe Barry, that's the only thing that would sit sour as far as the fans go here in Green Bay.
Yeah, there's that. I follow the tweets. I follow the conversations. It is not a hot take to suggest that the Packers fans do not like their defensive coordinator. He is John Kuhn. John, appreciate you doing this. Thanks so much. You be well. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Take care, Zach.
There you go. John Kuhn joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a timeout. When we come on back, the Ohio State Buckeyes have their new quarterback. What does that mean for their head coach? Is the head coach, Ryan Day, on the hot seat? We'll discuss next. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. You can always follow the Zach Gelb Show on social media, Twitter and Instagram, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Zach Gelb, there are a lot of backup quarterbacks playing this weekend. The final week of the NFL's regular season, there could be another in Jacksonville with the Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence uncertain because of a shoulder injury, but he is throwing today in the hopes of playing. The Jags win this weekend, and they are in the playoffs, but Lawrence likely to be a game-time decision. The Bucs will have Baker Mayfield for their season finale against the Panthers. They win the NFC South with a victory. The San Francisco Giants have reportedly acquired Robbie Ray from the Mariners for one-time Mariner Mitch Haniger, and Anthony DeSclafani. Ray is coming off Tommy John surgery, and the Rockies have signed pitcher Dakota Hudson and catcher Jacob Stallings. The Clippers opened the year with high expectations, and they only increased with the acquisition of James Harden. Things are now starting to come together after a bumpy start, and they go for their fifth straight win tonight in New Orleans, which is also won 4 in a row. Paul George said they had too much pride to crater under pressure.
This is a team that's not content on where we're at. We're always asking questions on how can we get better, what we got to do, and we work. You know, this been a group that's been worked.
Pelicans are coming off a win over the Timberwolves. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, Perloff, at home, in your car, and of course, on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You could thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. So the Ohio State new quarterback, or the new guy that's coming in the room, has been made, that decision. Will Howard is transferring from Kansas State to the Ohio State University. And it's an underwhelming move. I'm not saying Will Howard is worse than Kyle McCord. I do think it's more so of a lateral move. And if it is an upgrade, it's an upgrade in the slightest of ways. You know, I put out 5 quarterback transfer portal predictions when all this stuff did go down. I had DJ Uiagalelei going to Florida State. I had Kyle McCord transferring to Nebraska. He ended up going to Syracuse. And, you know, you go through some of these. I had Dylan Gabriel winding up in Oregon after he elected to leave Oklahoma. So some of them you get right, some of them you get wrong. But the name that I threw out there for Ohio State was Cam Ward. Now, initially, it seemed like both of those parties were interested, and it never came to fruition. And now we know Cam Ward is actually going to the NFL, which I was surprised by that. He was a 0-star recruit. He had a very good career, obviously, at Washington State. Was originally at Incarnate Word. But I didn't think he was going to go from entering the transfer portal to then making his decision to go to the NFL. So I don't think it was Ohio State was just banking on Ward going there from some of the initial reports, because it quickly developed after that where it looked like they weren't going to be in on him, and it was basically the Florida schools that were battling it out for Cam Ward, and then Cam Ward elected to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the NFL. So you look now at Ohio State. There's just not a feeling of positivity right now around Ohio State. Like, I look back at this Ohio State season, and in a win, I actually thought it was a pathetic moment for their university and for their football team. And it shows you how sensitive their head coach, Ryan Day, is. Ryan Day got annoyed about what Lou Holtz said about his football team, where Lou Holtz on the McAfee show questioned the toughness of the Ohio State. And he wins a game in Ryan Day where his quarterback, Kyle McCord, should have thrown a game-ending interception. And then on the final play of the game, Marcus Freeman couldn't get enough guys on the field. And you decide to run your mouth and not respect your elders in going after, poor Lou Holtz. And you're just yelling at him on national TV. When I saw that, I said, fake tough guy. I said, Ryan Day is insecure. He's sensitive. And when you have a reaction like that, and I'm not saying it wasn't a big win, but in the back of your head, you're the head football coach that at the time lost 2 years in a row to Michigan, and how your season's going to be judged based off if you win that game or not, how you elected to overly celebrate in that moment, that was the game. And you could document it by listening to this show. And I was clear about this. Guys like Michael Fry, who listens to us every day, that's a big Ohio State fan. Oh, why are you saying Ohio State has no shot this year? Why are you hating Ohio State? Because in that Notre Dame game, their warts were exposed. They were. Their flaws were exposed. The quarterback wasn't good enough. And the head coach, who keeps on saying that he has a tough football team and that he's a tough guy, he showed that he was actually pretty sensitive and pretty weak. So now you look at Ryan Day, where not only did he lose to Michigan 3 straight years, not only has he seen Michigan win 3 straight Big Ten championships, he is on the verge. And it's not a lock, because I have a lot of respect for that Washington program. Washington can easily, and I mean easily, win the national championship game on Monday night. But can you imagine? Michigan wins the Natty. I don't want to hear anything from Ryan Day. I don't want to hear him bitching and complaining about signs. I don't want to hear him tell me how tough his team is. I don't want to hear anything from Ryan Day. Because you took over an Urban Meyer team and an Urban Meyer program, regardless if you like Urban Meyer or not. And I don't. But Urban Meyer had that program humming. Urban Meyer had the Ohio State be elite. He had them be one of the teams in college football. Now under Ryan Day, it's Ohio State. They'll win a bunch of games in the regular season, but they won't win the big games that matter. You know, they'll beat Penn State. They'll beat that fraudulent Franklin. They'll beat all the other schools, but when they play Michigan, oh no. And watch, Harbaugh will leave, and then Ryan Day will start to win again, and he'll start to think he's actually a better football coach than what he is. But bringing in Will Howard, it's a move where I'm like, okay. Like, it doesn't get me excited. Like, I'm clearly not an Ohio State fan. But if I was, and I'm trying to buy back in on Ryan Day, going from McCord to Howard is like, slightly we got better? Maybe? Now, there's this perception on why Kyle McCord left. Let's hear from the former quarterback of Ohio State. He was on the QB Room podcast, Kyle McCord, on why he left the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Top level of college football, and then especially onto the pros. I mean, it's a business. At the end of the day, Ohio State had to make a business decision that they felt like was best for them, and I had to do the same thing. And unfortunately, just it wasn't meant to be for next year. But at the end of the day, I felt like I put together some solid games and I had some good tape, and so I was confident when I went in the portal I'd find a good home.
So I thought the perception and what the speculation was on why he left was he wasn't guaranteed that he was going to be the starting quarterback next year. But he made it seem like it was more business. So maybe he's suggesting that he wanted more NIL money. Like, that's how it sounded to me, that he wanted more NIL money, and Ohio State, through their collective or whatever, weren't willing to give it to him. Here is Kyle McCord, one more cut from him from the QB Room podcast on the narrative with all the speculation on why he left Ohio State.
I didn't really say too much. After I left, I kind of put out, my statement, kept the reasons close, kind of in my inner circle. And, I've had, news outlets hit me up. Like, I had a news outlet from Columbus that hit me up to do a story, and I didn't answer. Hit, my family up to do a story. They didn't answer. Hit people up in my circle to do a story. Nobody answered. And then the next day you go online and they have an article published of, the 5 reasons I left. And you read them and it's just a bunch of BS. And, they're just kind of pulling at strings at that point. And, the narrative, people read that and they think that's true. And so they start, believing in it and, posting it, and just kind of snowballs. And when you don't really, speak up about it, it is what it is.
Well, you should speak up about it. Because if you're annoyed by what's being said about you, you should clear your name. And just because a reporter reached out to you and your family, it doesn't mean that they weren't told why you left from the Ohio State side. You had a chance to clarify it, and you elected not to do so. But to wrap this up together, and I wish Kyle McCord nothing but the best at Syracuse. I'm a big fan of Fran Brown and also Elijah Robinson, who's on the defensive side of the ball. I've known those guys for years. So I hope Kyle McCord performs well. I don't believe that Ohio State drastically got better bringing in Will Howard. I think they slightly maybe at best got better, but I'm not ready to say that Ohio State's now this force to be reckoned with. And for Ryan Day, you don't at least bare minimum beat Michigan next year, regardless if they have Harbaugh or not on that sideline. You already have had people sour on Ryan Day, who's only lost 7 or 8 games in his career as the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. You will have a lot of people not only start to turn on you where they have already some, but it will be a majority of people where they won't be able to overlook the record because at that job, it's one thing and one thing only, and that's beating Michigan. And under Urban Meyer, they always beat Michigan. Under Ryan Day, now they've lost 3 years in a row. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Danny Cannell is going to stop by in 20 minutes from now. But first up, we do this segment every Monday and Friday on the show. Moist Mike has got a few questions. I'll give you a few answers. We call this segment Onside Offside. Manny Rodriguez, hit it!
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
Big Mike CBS, Moist Mike, Michael Samter. Sometimes in my Twitter mentions, they call him Santer. I got that yesterday. Now, I actually spelled your name wrong for a long time until we went on a trip together. I think it was to the draft. And this was in Las Vegas. Yeah, so it had to be the draft. And you saw in my phone, I spelled your name Samptur. But it's Samtur. But ever since working with you now on a full-time basis, whenever people rush to my DMs or rush to my social media accounts and they try to take shots at you, like if we disagree or they just don't agree with your opinion. And actually, the chat was very favorable to you yesterday. They were saying, "No, Samter, he's having some good opinions now to start off the new year. New year, new Samter." But I did get a few tweets where I was trying to figure out who they were talking about, and then I'm like, oh, they're talking about Samter, and it wasn't even the right ballpark in how they spelled your name. So
I've gotten a lot of weird spellings. It's odd when I'm on the phone because every letter of my last name could be a different letter. S could be F, M could be N, T could be P. So I get all kinds of FANPER all over the place. So I have to phonetically spell out the words and S as in Sigma, A as in Apple, M as in Mary, T as in Tango, and kind of use that old military language so that people can understand how to spell my name.
You would think my name would be pretty easy. It's only 8 letters. Zach Gelb.
Gelb, yeah.
A lot of people, if they mess it up, will do Gilb, like Gilb, which I don't know how.
Oh, I like that.
But you know what I've also realized? Anytime I get into an Uber or a Lyft, people can't say Zach. Zach, Zach. I don't think my name is uncommon. But I don't think I have been in an Uber in the last 5 months where I've gotten in the car and someone said, "Hey, Zach, how are you?" It's Zach or it's Zach. And I don't understand how that happened.
There should be a K at the end of your name, so the fact that there's an H there just throws everything off.
Oh, no, there shouldn't be.
I mean, there should be.
Z-A-C-K?
Yeah.
I think more people spell it Z-A-C-H than Z-A-C-K.
Zachary is with a C-H, but once you shorten it, it's kind of
that is my name. My full name is Zachary.
Right. And then
Zachary
once you shorten
Lazarus Gelb. You didn't have
and
that
then
as
once
my
you
middle
shorten
name.
it, you change the lettering, just like in Jonathan and John. Jonathan is usually Jonath, and then John is John, right? So you add the H when you shorten it from Jonathan to John. So
now I'm curious.
Yeah, Jonathan is not spelled with an H in there.
I'm really curious here. I'm Googling this. I'm trying to see if more people spell it CH or CK. Nah, don't really get any earlier results here. Anyway, let's get down to business. Let's get down to business.
Well, apparently this is a big weekend in the NFL. There's a couple.
Medusa.
There's a couple important games.
Santer's no clue what I'm talking about right now.
I'm not even paying attention to what you're saying. I'm trying to do onside, offside, and you're distracting me with
Why
all this
shall this
Zach
day
John
be different
stuff.
than any other day?
Yeah, well, that I know. Now, the AFC South is on the line, and there are 3 teams that can either win the division or miss the playoffs altogether. Obviously, Jacksonville, Houston, and the Colts. On Saturday, 2 of those teams face off with the Texans traveling to Indy. Onside, offside, the Texans are the more dangerous team than the Colts.
The Texans are the more dangerous team than the Colts. Yes, onsides. I believe the Colts have been tremendous this year. They are playing with no fear, and I love Gardner Minshew, and Shane Steichen has impressed me immensely. Immensely. I'm a big fan of Shane Steichen. But Michael Pittman Jr. has played better as of late. They've now have Jonathan Taylor back. I just look at the Texans, and DeMeco Ryans and Steichen are similar. Young coaches, both having success. But C.J. Stroud, when healthy, is the offensive rookie of the year. And then defensively, Will Anderson Jr. is getting better and better and better down the stretch. And he is looking like a top 3 candidate for defensive rookie of the year. So I believe the star power and the star presence of the Texans makes them a more dangerous team, because even though Minshew is this miraculous guy and he goes and has these really good games, there is more of an elite level when you look at a Stroud and when you look at Will Anderson compared to what the Colts have to offer on their offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. So on size.
Just for the record, Zach Moss of the Indianapolis Colts spells it Z-A-C-K, as does Zach Martin, the future Hall of Fame guard for the Cowboys. You know who spells it with an H? Zach Wilson. Good company you're in.
Okay,
the NFC
but hold
South,
on. They play for who? They play for the Colts, right?
Zach Moss does, and Zach Martin for the Cowboys.
That was a rhetorical question. I don't want to follow anything that happens with the Indianapolis Colts.
I mean, Zach Moss is one of the top running backs in the NFL this year, yardage-wise.
Yeah. You know.
Hey, listen, you can partner up with Zach Wilson all you want. He's probably just down the street.
You know
Just
what?
go hang out with him.
Let me tell you, I'd be more than happy hanging out with Zach Wilson. If you see some of the nice people that Zach Wilson hangs out with, I would love to spend some company with the people that Zach Wilson hangs out with.
You mean his mom's friends?
Zach Wilson's mom, she's got it going on. Zach Wilson's mom's friends, they got it going on. Zach Wilson hangs out with some very attractive females. What is it in Spanish, Manny? Bonita, and then girls would be chicas, right?
Well, you would want to say mujeres. Mujeres is more like women.
Okay.
Mujeres bonitas, mujeres
Mujeres.
bellas.
How do you say that?
Mujeres.
Mujeres bonita.
Well, bellas, beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how you win. Bella.
I know a little Spanish. Un poquito español.
Ja.
Keep it that way. Keep it that way. Now, speaking of the South, let's move over to the NFC and continue on with onside, offside, you giggling mess. The NFC South is also
it's a
up for
Friday.
grabs.
I'm in a good mood here.
I know.
With the guys in the YouTube chat a little bit loopy. I may be a little loopy today as well.
Oh, sipping on that scissor if I see it. The NFC South
I wouldn't go that far. Take it easy.
The NFC South is also up for grabs, with the Bucs will win the division with the win over the Panthers, but Baker Mayfield is banged up and his status is still up in the air. Onside, offside. If Baker plays and the Bucs still lose, that should be his last game as Tampa's starter.
Well, they're playing the Carolina Panthers. Like, I would say, one game shouldn't determine someone's future, and he's done enough to be on this team next year. But you lose to Carolina, like, yikes. I actually think the most intriguing part of that game is, will David Tepper have any cojones and actually show his face this weekend? And will he be in his fancy schmancy luxury box. And if the windows are open in that luxury box, throw a drink at David Tepper because he deserves it. But if the Baker plays and the Bucs lose, that should be his last game as Tampa starter. I would have to go on sides because, once again, of the opponent you're going up against. Got to win.
All right, moving on. My defending champion Chiefs take on the Chargers, but KC is locked into the 3 seed no matter what happens, so Blaine Gabbert is starting in place of Patrick Mahomes. Onside, offsides, the Chiefs would actually have been better off playing their starters to help work on those offensive woes they've been having.
No, that's an easy offside for me.
Offside.
If you have not fixed it yet, I don't think you're going to magically fix it in the final game of the season. And you don't even necessarily need it to kind of fix your lack of issue or your present issues with wide receivers in a game. But I don't think there's much to gain here. The only thing that could happen is Mahomes plays, he gets hurt, and then you're really screwed. Like, you always have a chance as long as 15 is healthy. So I don't think you need to play 15 with nothing to really gain from this one, because the Chiefs wide receivers, here's breaking news, even if he did play, they were still going to drop some footballs in this game. So get ready for wild card weekend. Get ready for the playoffs. The Chiefs would have been better off playing their starters to help work on their offensive woes. I would go offside.
Now, Celtics still in a tough race, needing a win and a Packers loss to clinch the final spot in the NFC. Head coach Pete Carroll is the oldest coach in the NFL at 72, about 6 months older than your boy Bill Belichick. So onside, offside, do you think Pete Carroll will continue coaching in the NFL longer than Bill Belichick?
You know, it's crazy. Pete Carroll's 72. He doesn't look anything like he's 72.
Or act like it.
And he's in great shape. Like Belichick, little husky up top, if you know what I'm saying. Belichick, he's tiptoeing out of people's houses in Nantucket after maybe getting a little booty call since he broke up with his longtime girlfriend. I'm not saying Belichick's looking old, but he's looking older than Pete Carroll. And I think Pete Carroll still has a ton of enthusiasm. I believe Belichick will eventually walk away when he passes the Don Shula record for most wins ever. So, yeah, I would buy more stock just because he seems a little bit more youthful in Pete Carroll coaching longer than Belichick on sides.
Let him dominating the transfer portal and landing a strong recruiting class. However,
the lane train. Choo-choo!
The lane train might be hitting a derailment possibly because Ole Miss got some bad luck losing their star running back Quinshawn Judkins, who has entered the transfer portal. Judkins was second in the SEC in rushing with over 1,100 yards and had a second straight 15-touchdown season. Onside, offside, Lane Kiffin is facing the most pressure of any coach in the college next season. Now, I know which way you might go after what we just talked about with Ryan Day, but I still think it's a good question.
No, it's a fair question, but I am easily going to say offside when you say Lane Kiffin is facing the most pressure of any coach in college next season.
Offside.
I'll give you two just right off the top of the head. Ryan Day, obviously, and then my BFF, James Franklin. Both of those guys have a lot more pressure.
I got one more for you.
Yeah?
Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Moving to a new conference, losing his quarterback, losing Malachi Nelson, who's potentially going to Boise State, who is your next five-star starter. He's got to prove something at USC.
So that's a great point that you've just brought up. And I have been on this train for now 2 years that Lincoln Riley is overrated and he should not have left Oklahoma. And now you go to USC, who is now moving into the Big Ten. The one thing that I have that I think Lincoln Riley has in his favor, if he was still at Oklahoma and this stuff was happening, the fans would be all over him. I don't think the fans are all over him at USC. I'm not saying USC doesn't have a passionate fan base. They do, but it's a little bit of a different mentality than the program of Oklahoma. So there is pressure. I just don't think there's pressure on Lincoln Riley yet to lose his job. I do think there's pressure entering this season with James Franklin and Ryan Day, where if the season doesn't go a certain way, their seat's going to be on fire, and they may be looking for a new home in 2025. So I will go offside on that one. Next one.
Major classes slowing down, averaging under 17 points a game and a career low 37.8% behind the arc. Earlier in the week, Clay opened up about his focus for the rest of the season.
Steve and I had actually a great conversation yesterday. That helped me relax a lot. Sometimes I forget
just how successful and how lucky I've been to be a part of championship teams and all-star games and gold medals. And when you want to get back to that level so badly, you could kind of get in your own way. And rather than forcing it, we had a conversation about just enjoying this last chapter of my career and how lucky I truly am to still be playing this game and being a better mentor for these young guys, leading by example, and having my energy right every game. And he helped me realize if I do have negative energy, how that affects the team in a poor manner. So we had a great conversation. That just helped me change my whole mindset.
Onside, offside, the Warriors should trade Klay Thompson.
Yeah, I think they should onside. Final year of his deal. I don't believe they should extend him. And I think what the Warriors need to do is realize the dynasty that they had, you need to start changing those pieces. Steph is the constant. Steph is still great. But you should have never extended Draymond Green. And that's not revisionist history because of now Draymond's coming back from the suspension and all that stuff. I said that last offseason. Draymond was great when you needed him for all those years, but now the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And unfortunately for Klay, he could still play at a really high level, but his body has just suffered so many injuries. So I think maybe like the Lakers, the Sixers could be two teams that need shooters. They should try to go make a move for Klay Thompson. I think the Warriors should give him should trade him, because if you give him a new contract, unless it's on a cheap deal, which I don't think is going to be the case, I think you're just doubling down on what he did for the in the past and not what he's going to do in the future. So I would say on sides they should trade him.
Less than the Lakers lost 9 of the last 12 since winning the in-season tournament, which was obviously very important, dropping to 17 and 18 overall and falling to 10th in the West. Now reports say there is, quote, deepening disconnect between the Lakers players and coach Darvin Ham. Onside, offside, Ham should be held responsible for the Lakers' struggles this year.
You know, what a joke. Seriously. And I'm not directly relating this to LeBron James because it's more than just LeBron James. But whenever a team isn't playing to their standard, it seems like the coach always gets fired when they're attached to LeBron James. And I have never really given the coach credit when LeBron James is playing there, because LeBron, even though the Lakers have pushed back to some extent with Rob Pelinka, but LeBron pretty much gets what he wants. And the crazy part is the Lakers are playing this poorly when Anthony Davis is actually playing some solid basketball and he's healthy, and LeBron has been healthy as well. It's not like those two guys have really been unavailable throughout this year. But it is funny to me, in a league that is full of player empowerment, and it's all about how the players run the league, and it's the players. Whenever the players don't play well enough, they never take the accountability. It's always on the coach, whether it's Luke Walton, whether it's Frank Vogel, now it's Darvin Ham, you know, the whole David Blatt situation going to Cleveland. Heck, LeBron tried to get Eric Spoelstra fired. He wanted Pat Riley to come from the upstairs booth that he was in and then go coach on the sideline. So it's always everybody else's fault, never the player's fault in the NBA. So you asked me, Ham should be held responsible for the Lakers' struggles? No. That's offside.
Offside.
But what probably will happen is this is the beginning of the end for Darvin Ham in LA, and this is just the start when you hear these things. All righty. That is Onside Offside. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We will preview Week 18, also go around the college football world with the transfer portal, and also the national championship game on Monday night with former NFL and college quarterback Danny Cannell.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Give us a call right now, 855-212-4CBS.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in Danny Cannell. You can check out Bet Online for a plethora of college football playoff championship lines and props, plus opening odds for the 2025 college football playoff championship. Danny Cannell, what's happening? Appreciate you doing this once again.
What's up, Zach? Happy New Year. Hope you're fantastic. It's bittersweet, right? We got one more game to go to crown a national champion, but that means it's the end of college football season. But it's been a fun year, and I think we got a really fun championship game, too.
Yeah, we'll talk about the championship in just a bit, but I got to bring up Florida State. I find the conversation the last week to be insufferable on both sides. Florida State gets smothered by Georgia. No crap. Florida State was without 25 players from their actual team. Then Alabama loses to Michigan, and I hear how Florida State should be in the college football playoff. There's no logic here anymore. People aren't making sense anymore, and it's a span of like 2 days in between when someone says something that's stupid, and then people say things that are even dumber a few days later. It's crazy.
Welcome to the world of college football where nothing makes sense, Zach. I mean, it really is, because you could argue till you're blue in the face either way, right? I mean, whatever side you want to go. I had people coming at me saying, oh, see, this is why the committee got it right. Florida State got blown out. They had no business being in the playoff, even though we all know they didn't have about 80% of their offensive production on the field. And then, like you mentioned, as soon as Alabama took the field, Florida State fans were like, see, this is why we should have gotten in. It is all the evil genius of the minds behind college football, which made a very concerted effort 10 years ago when they started the college football playoff, that there was going to be a team every year that got left out, and it would drive conversation. It would drive interest. And yes, it would even drive people crazy because every year somebody was going to get left out. I just hate that it had to be my alma mater that had the most egregious example of a Power 5 conference champion that got left out. And the good news is we're going to 12 next year, but I don't think it's going to stop people from going crazy and mad because of whether it's the top 4 seeds, which will get a bye, the next 4 seeds, which will get a home playoff game on their site, or the 13th, 14th team who gets left out. The controversy isn't going anywhere, but the powers that be say that's great for the sport, and the ratings back that up, Zach.
I also think the interesting part about this, and I don't think anyone has made this point this week, because I know Georgia lost to Alabama, but we talked about this, right? The committee said Alabama was better than Florida State, but then Florida State was better than Georgia. And I think most people would say, no, Georgia's better than Florida State. And I know the bowl game was the bowl game, but it was completely different rosters. No one this week is talking about what would have happened if Georgia got into this college football playoff, because I would have to think they would have been playing in the national championship game in some capacity on Monday night if they were one of the 4 teams.
Yeah, I totally agree. But see, then it goes back to what year was it when the Patriots ran the table in the regular season? They were perfect, right? And then they faced the New York Giants as the favorite. Like that team, if they would have gotten another chance at the Giants, they probably would have beat them, right? At some point, like the games have to matter, which is why I thought Bama should have been left out losing to Texas. But if you're going to give Bama an extra chance, if you're going to give them a mulligan, why didn't you give it to Georgia? Because Georgia would have been favored in a rematch again against Bama, and they showed how good they were against Florida State. It is all a mess. And like I said, we could argue different scenarios until we're blue in the face, any of them. And by the committee's own criteria, you could make a justification for any team got left out, any team, should have been there. It just drives me crazy. And I know it drives a lot of fans crazy too.
And I know you didn't mean it this way as Danny Cannell joins us, but the one thing that I can't stand is like last year when Saban said, oh, well, we would have been favored against any of these teams that we were going up against, the teams that they got in front of us. You were also favored 2 times last year, and you lost both of those games. So I don't care who the favorite is. You're right. The games need to matter to some degree. And let me be clear, Georgia didn't deserve to go this year because it's a mixture of who's the most deserving and who's the best team, regardless of what the committee does say.
No doubt. And that's the blend of it. And that's why. And there's also the reason Florida State got left out. And the committee was very upfront and clear about this. They said they weren't the same team without Jordan Travis, their starting quarterback, and their offense looked atrocious. That was the minute I started getting nervous because I was pretty much guaranteeing Florida State was in no matter what happened. If they ran the table, they were undefeated in the ACC with wins over LSU and Florida from the SEC. That I was guaranteeing fans they were in. But the minute, even with Jordan Travis's injury, but the minute I watched that game, the ACC Championship game versus Louisville, and it was gross. It was ugly. The offensive performance was atrocious. I was thinking, the committee's watching this game too, and they were thinking, do we really want to put this offense on the national stage? Because while, yes, Florida State could have won, it would have been an ugly defensive performance. Like, that's the way they would have been able to win in the playoffs. And I think that was the minute I started getting nervous, was that I was watching that game like he was. This offense doesn't look adequate, even though months to prepare, maybe they get things ironed out. I hate that I understood why they went that direction.
Talking to Danny Cannell right now. I got to get your thoughts on DJ Uiagalelei. I love him going to Florida State, getting back into the ACC, going up against Clemson and Dabo Swinney, and Dabo's become insufferable really the last 2-3 years, and everyone else is starting to catch up to him and even surpass him in the ACC, as you saw Florida State win the ACC championship this year. Your reaction to DJ Uiagalelei joining your Seminoles?
So full disclosure, Zach, if there was a draft, I would have wanted to draft Cam Ward, the quarterback from Washington State. I think he was the most dynamic player, the biggest game changer, the guy who can kind of really take your program to a next level. Once he was, he announced, now there's speculation that he announced as a leverage move. He hasn't hired an agent, that he still could be in the mix until January 15th when they actually have to declare for the NFL draft. But once he was off the board, so to speak, then it was like, let's get DJU. That's the direction they went. I think it's a safe play. Like, I think it's a good move. I don't think it's a great move. I think Cam Ward would have been a player that all of a sudden you're picking Florida State again to go to the ACC Championship. You're picking them again to go to the playoffs. I need to see DJU take that next step, because he's been a polarizing quarterback from when he went to Clemson. He was a 5-star, supposed to be all everything, didn't pan out. Then he goes to Oregon State. It's supposed to take that next level. And it was almost identical statistically to the season before at Clemson. He needs to take that next jump. Like, he had 21 touchdown passes this past season at Oregon State. He's got to get that to 30 plus and, less than, single digit interceptions, 65% completion rate. But here's the thing that I do trust. Mike Norvell has been great with quarterbacks and great developing systems that fit his quarterback skill set. I trust him to do that. But then, not to mention, you have all those question marks, those players that were sitting out in the bowl because they opted out for the NFL draft, they're gone. So he has a lot of players to replace, which he's been a transfer portal king. He's going to have to be just as active as he's been in years past if they want to replicate any type of the success they had this past season.
Danny Cannell here with us. Will Howard to Ohio State, is that underwhelming to you? Like, did Ohio State get better with Kyle McCord going to Syracuse? How do you react to the Ohio State new quarterback?
They're better. It is an upgrade for Ohio State. He's more dynamic than Kyle McCord. He's a better runner. He's bigger arm. And I think he's played better with less talent. And I hate the year that Kyle McCord had where he feels it was a failure, because for a first-year starter, he was really good. Unfortunately, he plays at a place where the expectation is 40-plus touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. He wasn't the next in a long line of quarterbacks. Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud, Dwayne Haskins, guys that have been lighting up the charts. He unfortunately fell just short of that. And still, they were a one-loss team. I just wish he would have stuck around and maybe tried to develop and get better, because if you go back and look at players, like, that's one thing, we're so impatient. And I say we, it's us as analysts, it's fans at Ohio State, and sometimes it's coaches. If this would, like, Joe Burrow, his first year at LSU that he transferred in there, I think he completed 52% of his passes. He was like 14 or 15 touchdown passes.
Nick Brissett was more memorable on that team, on that offense, compared to Joe Burrow on offense, the running back. Yeah,
absolutely. So it was boring. Like, he didn't look great. He might have been moved off now because people want to succeed now. Then he develops, gets comfortable in the system, and he puts the perfect season in 2019. But unfortunately, we're not going to see that. But I do think Will Howard is an upgrade, but he still has to learn that system. And no more Marvin Harrison Jr. I know at one time it was wide receiver but Julian Fleming, one of their top targets, just transferred to Penn State. This is the world of transfer portal where every single year there is a tremendous amount of turnover on everybody's roster.
How far are you willing to go, Danny Cannell, with Michael Penix Jr. at the next level? Where should he be ranked when you look at these quarterbacks that are eligible to be in the NFL draft coming up in April?
Boy, that's going to be a fascinating discussion. And I think there's one player with a ton of pressure on him in this game, both from, what he has to do for his team to win, but also the draft boards, because after watching what he did in the Sugar Bowl, I saw a bunch of people on social media saying, holy cow, this kid can sling it. And I'm like, what have you guys been watching?
Yeah.
He's been doing this. It's just
Last
been
2
late
years.
at night. No one's he's been tearing it up. Like, you guys should have been paying attention. I do think coming before the Sugar Bowl, it was very clear. Caleb Williams 1, Drake May 2, Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner, 3. Then Penix might have been a little bit of a gap. Well, he's closed that gap significantly. And I think there's going to be some people that potentially jump him all the way to number 2, that especially the recency bias of that Sugar Bowl. But now but if you dive into the tape, Texas's secondary was a weakness. They're not very good. Now he's got to go against one of the best defenses in the country in Michigan. He'll be faced with a ferocious pass rush. If he replicates what he did in the Sugar Bowl, if he goes off for 400 plus and wins the game, watch out, because he could jump to 2. I don't think there's anything anybody can do to supplant Caleb Williams from the number 1 spot, but I think that number 2 spot is open for business. And if Michael Penix shreds apart Michigan's defense, I think he could be the second quarterback off the board.
Wrap it up with Danny Cannell. Everyone is talking about Michael Penix Jr. because it's the sexy part from the semifinals, right? He stole the show. So going into that game, it's like, oh, what's Michael Penix Jr. going to do up against Michigan? I look at this when I'm breaking it down, and we know what Michigan's bread and butter is. You saw it up against Penn State. It's Blake Corum. It's Donovan Edwards. Their best defense against Michael Penix is going to be their offense and running the ball and chewing off clock and having Penix on the sideline and just playing that bully ball that they like to play with Corum and also Donovan Edwards.
I think you are a very smart man, Zach, because that is exactly the matchup. Everyone's talking about the matchup.
Many don't say that, by the way. We could use that as a drop.
Right.
Thank you very much, Danny Cannell.
There you go. I'm giving you some props, because everyone is talking about the strength versus strength matchup. Washington's offensive line is the Joe Moore Award winning. They're the best in the country. They've only given up 11 sacks all year versus Michigan's front seven. Yeah, it's going to be a fun matchup to watch, but I'm more concerned about strength versus weakness. And that is Michigan's run game that you mentioned. Their offensive line, which didn't look like it missed a beat despite losing Zach Center, one of their best guards, against Alabama. Blake Corum, one of the bigger backs, workhorse backs in the country. They've got an identity against Washington's defense, which, if you follow advanced analytics, their rush defense is 130th in success rate. That is not good. That is towards the bottom, almost the last in all of FBS, all of college football. So that concerns me greatly. But when I say that, I think Michigan is going to bring a physicality that Washington hasn't had. But guess who else brought physicality? Oregon did.
Yeah,
and Washington matched it. That's the one. I am, in case you haven't noticed, I think Michigan's going to win. I'm laying the points with Michigan. I think exactly what we're talking about takes place. And yet, everyone's been picking against Washington for the back half of the season. They were a 10-point dog against Oregon. People thought Oregon would march up and down the field against them, and they didn't. So there's a small sliver of doubt. They're 5-0, straight up as underdogs, not just against the spread. 5-0 against the as with Kalen DeBoer as the head coach. So there's a part of me that's nervous, but I just feel like the third time is the charm for the Wolverines. I feel like this is a moment that's kind of been growing. They've been there. They've got the experience in the playoffs. And I feel like they kicked the door down versus Alabama, and I think this is where they get back to the top of the college football world.
Last thing I'll ask you, Danny Cannell. So you were talking about how you have Williams, May, Daniels, and then Michael Penix Jr., and 2 through 4 is going to be fascinating, but no one's going to move past Caleb Williams as the number 1 pick. Do you think the Bears are trading out of that number 1 spot, or are they keeping that draft pick to select Caleb Williams, and that means they would then trade Justin Fields?
Boy, I tell you what, it is a decision they've got to make, because typically, if you're a team if you're a quarterback like Justin Fields, who's in this big decision year that you've got to make to determine your fate, you play well enough and you start winning, you're going to be out of that discussion for the number 1 overall pick. But because of the trade to Carolina, it's out of his control. And I do think he's played better.
Yeah.
And he's played well enough to earn that opportunity to kind of say, all right, let's trade down. Let's see if we can get Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's see if we can, potentially turn this thing around me. But man, Caleb Williams, wait till you hear some of the things you're going to hear about him, because it's going to be, he's the closest thing to Patrick Mahomes. He's a generational talent.
And he embraces that. I talked to Williams, and there was that quote I think it was from Tom House, that there's nothing that Williams could do that Mahomes can't, something like that. And I said that to Williams at the Heisman, and he was like, yeah, I see it the same exact way, and with all the respect in the world to Patrick Mahomes.
Right. He doesn't lack confidence one bit. I'm hedging around your question because I'm really torn on what to do with it. I personally think you go with the known. And I think with Justin Fields, you've seen kind of the worst case scenario, which I don't think is that bad. Like, I don't think he's a bust. I think if he is on the trade market, maybe it's a change of scenery that Justin Fields needs. I still think he could be a really good quarterback. We've seen before guys pitched as the number 1 overall pick. Go back and listen to some of the takes on Bryce Young. Now, he had size issues, but it really wasn't his size that was the issue this year. I mean, he's been healthy for the most part. I know he got knocked around early.
He's also in a bleep show in Carolina.
Yeah, exactly, which is a complete mess. So I still get nervous. I still think it's a coin flip around anybody, no matter what they've done in college. I think Caleb Williams is going to be awesome, but you never know. At least we know with Justin Fields that he's not going to be a complete bust. And then I think it depends on the offer. Like, what's a team willing to give up to come up and get him? Trust me, there will be some desperate teams in the market for Caleb Williams that might, offer you a king's ransom where you can go out there and take it. And then it just gives you the answer for you of what to do for your future.
You can check out BetOnline for a plethora of college football playoff championship lines and props, plus opening odds for the 2025 college football playoff championship. He is Danny Cannell. Danny, always appreciate our conversations. Thank you.
You got it, Zach. Enjoy the game.
Thanks so much. You as well. There he is, Danny Cannell, joining us on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Let's take a timeout. We'll come on back. We'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio with the news brief. But update time first. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
I think you are a very smart man, Zach.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
I don't even think his parents would say that. The Jaguars win, and they're in the playoffs in the AFC
Act wants
South
to get smacked on a Friday. Take it easy.
I'm just calling like I see him. They might have to get there without Trevor Lawrence, who is trying to get through his shoulder injury. No final determination has been made on his status. It could be a game-time call. He did throw at practice today. The Bucs win the NFC South with a win over the Panthers, and quarterback Baker Mayfield good to go, despite being listed as questionable due to sore ribs. The San Francisco Giants acquired pitcher Robbie Ray for the Mariners for Mitch Haniger and Anthony DeSclafani, who's entering the final year of his deal. Ray is coming off Tommy John surgery and expected to miss roughly half of the season. The Colorado Rockies have come to terms with pitcher Dakota Hudson and catcher Jacob Stallings on one-year deals. The Celtics have been the NBA's best team, but open 2024 the loss in Oklahoma City. They're back home tonight where they're 16-0 and will host the Jazz. They have a 2-game lead in the East over the idle Bucks, and the Sixers are 3 games back. Philly will host the Knicks tonight, and the Pacers, red hot, winning their last 5, are home to take on the Hawks. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, I'm Bart Winkler. New year, new show, new time. Catch the Bart Winkler Show evenings starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Before we get to a news brief, let me tell you about my friends at Fairfield by Marriott. Let's take a look at who's got home field advantage in our NCAA football preview sponsored by Fairfield by Marriott. Fairfield by Marriott is official hotel partner of the NCAA with over 1,000 locations around the country. You will always have the home field advantage. Visit fairfield.marriott.com to book your stay. There is just one game remaining in college football as Michigan and Washington face off in the national championship game at NRG Stadium in Houston. Neither team has a home field advantage, though Ann Arbor is 1,000 miles closer to Houston than Seattle. But will that play a factor in the crowd? Well, I'll tell you this. As much as I love the Washington program, I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot more fans that are Michigan fans in that stadium than Washington fans. That would just be my prediction. All righty, let's start it off with Brian Daboll. Remember a few weeks ago, It was Ryan Dunleavy who was asking him if he's ever tried Tommy Cutlets, his mom's chicken cutlets. And he was like, oh, I'm on a diet to Ryan. And then the reporter said, well, Ryan, Dabes, Brian Daboll, Dabes. What about those cookies you eat all the time? Well, the media keeps on going back with Brian Daboll. Here's a little conversation with the coach of the Giants and a reporter about some good hair.
Sunday, if they hit certain thresholds. Are you aware of those?
Sorry, I'm looking at your hair.
My hair?
Yeah.
Jealous? Doggy jealous?
I am, but you should flip your phone around and take a look at it.
It is a little wild.
But yes, I am. Yeah. That's been about, 30 years, so yeah. I forgot the question.
So there you have a reporter just doing his job with some nice hair, and Daboll's like, oh, you got nice hair. And I don't think the reporter meant it the way that it first happened, but he was like, oh, you jealous? And then everyone in the room laughed because you can't say that to a bald guy when you have these luscious locks. I want to know who the reporter is. I didn't recognize the voice right away. But, man, Dave's taken a beat down about his lack of hair and his weight from the media the last few weeks. Let's go to Bo Melton of the Green Bay Packers. He says Jordan Love is a great leader.
Jay Love, he's a great guy, We go to dinners at his house. Mondays, he has whole people come over. I don't think I'm saying too much, but we come over his house on Mondays. We eat. We go over film. Before the week starts, we go over film as well. So I think, just the bond of, staying connected with him is big as a wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I do believe there's been a lot of drama. Here's breaking news in Green Bay the last 2 years prior to this one. And not having to deal with the Aaron Rodgers drama just makes everyone be able to breathe a little bit easier in that locker room, where you had all this drama, you had all this contentious fighting, and then, all right, Rodgers gets dealt, and the guy that just did everything the right way behind the scenes the last 2 years is a starting guy, and he can relate to those younger players more, and he's really taking control of that locker room. I don't think anyone should be surprised that now down the stretch, the Green Bay Packers are starting to put things together and they have a chance to make the playoffs this upcoming weekend if they beat the Chicago Bears. Let's get the play-by-play NBA on TNT. This is Nikola Jokic. What can't he do up against the Golden State Warriors? Maybe Steve Kerr shouldn't have started to say he shouldn't have been able to do something in that game 5 minutes ago because it looked like the Warriors are going to blow out the Nuggets. And then in the final seconds, Nikola Jokic somehow hit this half-court three-point shot to win the game.
Jokic has it. Clock ticks. Got to put one up. Jokic for the win. Oh! It's good! Jokic got it off in time, and the Nuggets win it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? A 7-footer off the dribble.
Yeah, that's Kobe White. Wow. That's crazy, bro. That was insane. Absolutely insane. And you know what's even crazier? Nikola Jokic won a championship last year. And he didn't even look like he gave a rat's ass. It was nice to actually see a smile and a kid-like excitement from Nikola Jokic after having that crazy shot last night. Also, last evening in the association, you had the Milwaukee Bucks go up against the San Antonio Spurs. So you had Giannis Antetokounmpo and Victor Wembanyama. Try to say both those names 10 times fast. Giannis goes for 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists. He also got blocked big time by Victor Wembanyama. And Wembanyama, as the kids call him, Wemby, had 27 points and 9 rebounds as well. I think it's good. You see Wemby play really strong, and then Giannis takes it to the next level. That game was important to both to showcase. And Giannis basically reminded everyone, I'm still... maybe not the best player in the NBA because that's right now Nikola Jokic, but one of the best players in the NBA. Here is Giannis, though, showing respect and raving about Wemby.
You haven't seen anything like that. So the sky is the limit, and as long as you work hard and you keep on having a positive attitude, energy towards the game, everything that he dreams of is going to happen for him.
It's very tough at sports to gain the respect of your peers instantly. And 2 athletes have done that this year, and they're not even through their rookie seasons. It is Victor Wembanyama with the San Antonio Spurs. You hear the way that Steph, LeBron, and Giannis talks about him. And then Connor Bedard of the Chicago Blackhawks as well, has like 15 goals and 18 assists so far through the first half of the season. He's been sensational. Those two guys, there was so much hype. And sometimes when there's so much hype, people try to poke fun at you, jab you, and they want to see you just fall down. Both of those guys, they are seeing it from their confidants and their coworkers that they understand how great those two guys are, and all the big names are showing them respect. Adrian and Maryland, I'll get to you on the other side. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. You can jump on in. Also, still to come, Dolphins, Bills, huge matchup this weekend. What's on the line? We'll discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go, hour number 3 of our radio program. Happy Friday, everybody. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Final show of the week. Well, there will be Eye on Football on Sunday, too. But final Zach Gelb Show of the week. We will do Eye on Football Week 18 coming up on Sunday for 8 hours from noon Eastern to 8 p.m. Pacific. And then I will go home. I will watch the Dolphins-Bills game. And then early that morning, hoping the weather is okay, because there could be some problems with some projected snow here in New York City, I will be getting on a plane early Monday morning. And if the weather is fine, then we just hope that the airlines cooperate and hold up their end of the bargain as well, because there's a lot of stressful things in this country. And I know we kind of get caught up in our own circles and our selfish things we may say are the most stressful, and then people will be playing their small violin when I'm about to say this. But I don't know if there's anything more stressful right now in my life than when I'm getting ready to go on a trip somewhere and get on a plane. The last year, I don't think anyone has been more screwed by the airlines than me. When we were coming back from the draft in Kansas City, we had 20 people from the company that went to the draft in Kansas City. Everyone's plane got off on time. Everyone's plane went from destination A to destination B. I was the one person in the company whose flight got delayed for 6-7 hours and then got canceled when I had tickets to go attend a playoff game for the New York Rangers up against the New Jersey Devils. It was Game 6. So some little weasel around here, I'm not going to say that person's name, they got a good deal because I paid full value for it and then some. And since I was selling the last second, the person said he could only do this much money for the 2 tickets. And I was like, well, I'll mess so well anyway. I'm out of luck. I had the tickets up all day at the airport. And then the next thing you know, they didn't sell for some reason, even though everyone else's tickets were selling. So I had to give that person a pretty good discount. And then I was supposed to go to Florida last year to visit my grandma. Then that plane got canceled as well, and it was like a 75-degree day. When I was going to Nebraska in September, my plane got canceled, and then I had to get a flight to Des Moines, Iowa, which we do have an affiliate in Des Moines. I was listening to CBS Sports Radio in Des Moines, Iowa, and then drive the 3 hours from Des Moines, Iowa, all the way to Lincoln, Nebraska. And then the next day I had to drive from Lincoln, Nebraska to Kansas City because that's where the plane back was going. So I have just got screwed by the airlines over and over and over again. And all I ask for on Monday, because I'm going to the national championship game, the plan is we will fly in early Monday morning, then I will do the show in Houston, and then I will go to the game at night, and then I will get up Tuesday morning. I got a 6:10 a.m. Central Time flight, and I'll shoot back to New York City and get to the studio in time for the show. But on Monday, all I'm asking for, like whatever happens on Tuesday happens Tuesday. But on Monday, that plane better be on time. No delays. On time. I want no travel issues. I was a good boy this past year. I only attacked David Tepper on the radio and James Franklin and Ryan Hickey and Michael Samter and some other people, but they all deserved it. I was a good person this year, and I asked for one lousy thing. Just be on time with the airlines. Because if I have to deal with the stress of a delay and then potentially, landing and bolting out of the airport to get to the studio to do the show, or then the plane's going to take off, but I won't be on time for the show, so therefore I won't be able to make the trip, I'm going to lose my mind. And I tried to do this in the last year. I tried. Every time I had an airline issue, I didn't try to bitch and complain about it on social media because I understand the problems I was having is very small compared to other people in this world. But I will be on one on Monday, and I will take no prisoners. And you think I was rough on David Tepper this past week, and I want to throw a drink in that pig's face, I will be furious. I will be losing my mind if the airlines don't cooperate on Monday. So all I ask, just get me to Houston on time. That's it. That's all I ask. I don't care what happens the rest of the year. Karma could be bad to me in February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. My year will be ruined if this flight is not on time. The entire 2024 will be the worst year ever if the flight is not on time. All righty? And I don't, you know what? Here's the crazy part. You think I'm having a breakdown right now about the possibility of this flight? I got the flight at a good price, okay? The flight that I'm on right now, there's like 3 seats left. Because Michigan, I guess, is in the national championship game, and there's a big Michigan contingent here in New York. The flight now is going for $1,300 one way. One way to Houston, $1,300. So, if someone wants to pay me to take my flight, $1,300, I want to drop in my pocket, miss the flight, I can't go to the national championship game. Oh, that's, not the end of the world. I'll go get a nice pizza pie, maybe a little steak, and watch the Natty. But if you think I'm losing my mind now, wait until you have like alums of the school that are a little bit snotty, let's just say, a little bit pretentious, having to deal with the airlines. Because that's the problem with the airlines now. They never tell you the truth. Like, the fact that I had to sit in the airport in Kansas City for 7 hours until they canceled the flight was a joke. And the next day, when I checked into the airport, they were like, oh, you were on that flight yesterday from Kansas City. Oh, there was an air traffic control problem at JFK. That flight was never getting off the ground. Lady just said that to me. And I was like, oh, wonderful. Could have told me that like the day before. Couldn't have just went to a barbecue joint, stuffed my fat face, and then go back to my hotel room. So just be on time, everybody, on Monday. So plan is show in Houston Monday. Go to the game Monday night. Follow on social media at Zach Gelb. Instagram, Twitter will take you all behind the scenes, hopefully, of the national championship game, ZACH GELB. And then we will be back on Tuesday in our New York City studios. All righty, I will get to a little Dolphins and Bills in just a second. But first, Adrian in Maryland's been holding on for a while. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Wanted to jump back in on that conversation regarding Justin Fields. My take has been the Bears should keep Justin Fields, and they should either trade back and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or just draft Marvin Harrison Jr. with the number 1 overall pick. Adrian in Maryland, what's happening? Yo, Adrian.
Yo, Zach, what's up? Happy Friday. Hey, I called about 3 weeks ago, said the same thing. You keep Justin Fields, you trade back, you pick up his fifth-year option, so then he plays for his contract. You take Marvin Harrison, and then you take that tackle, from Penn State at number 10. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good plan now, and appreciate the phone call, Adrian. Now, that first pick, it's how many spots are you falling back? Like, if you fall 2 or 3, you could still get Marvin Harrison Jr. If you're going north of the 3rd pick or south of the 3rd pick, then you're probably not going to get Marvin Harrison Jr., and then it's okay. Maybe you take with that first-round pick at like maybe 5 or 6, let's just say. Do you take the lineman from Notre Dame? Do you take the lineman from Penn State? Or do you maybe go a defensive player like an edge rusher, like Jared Verse is going to be highly mocked in the NFL draft out of Florida State as well? So I think you do have, if you're keeping Fields, I do think you need to, in some way, take a wide receiver, but then the other pick, protection would be nice, or going and adding a player on the defense side of the ball. And that's the other part of the conversation. Like, I have been so set on Marvin Harrison Jr. because I believe Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a Hall of Famer. I believe Marvin Harrison Jr. is the preeminent player in this draft. But there are other good wide receivers in this draft. So let's say if, I don't know, like the Giants or the Falcons at 5 or 9 come calling. Like if that's where they're currently projected, I believe. And that takes you out of Marvin Harrison Jr., I could be okay with that because then maybe you get Malik Neighbors from LSU. Maybe you get Rome Odunze from Washington, who you see in the national championship game. Like, there are other really talented wide receivers in this draft class. But I just believe, you could consider maybe Troy Franklin. I don't think he's going to go that early. Like, there are other guys, Keon Coleman from Florida State, that you can consider. But I just believe that Harrison Jr. is going to be the best, and I want the best. And I do think when you pair Fields with Marvin Harrison Jr. and then DJ Moore, you're setting him up in the best position possible to succeed. So that's why I've been so just stuck on, all right, draft Marvin Harrison Jr., but you could argue, to get more future first-round picks, that there will be other wide receivers who may not be better in an NFL career than Marvin Harrison Jr., but have potential to still be elite great wide receivers in the NFL. All righty, let's get to a little Dolphins and Bills this weekend. This is the game out of all the games this weekend I'm most excited for. And in Miami, we already know the Dolphins are a playoff team. And I picked the Dolphins to win the AFC East before the season did start. But the Dolphins, who have been in this lead spot for most of the year, and the Bills have been like, all right, disappointing, then getting back on track, and then, they're winning now, but they haven't played great the last 2 games. It's wild to look at Buffalo. And Buffalo's like a 2.5, 3-point favorite right now. And the game's in Miami, but it's pretty much going to be a home game anyway for the Buffalo Bills. And people are now so confident in Buffalo to win this game. So here's where I look at this from a gambling standpoint. Everyone's telling me Buffalo, 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 Buffalo. And I believe the Buffalo Bills are going to win this game as well. But when everyone's telling me I have to make this pick, and then I also think that way, isn't that usually the game? And isn't that usually a recipe for the team that no one is picking to end up winning? And it would be very Dolphin-like to win this game, and it would be very Buffalo-like before the success that they've had recently for the Bills to drop this game. And it is wild that the Bills could finish as high as 2 in the AFC entering this weekend, or they could be on the outside looking in and not be one of the top 7 teams from the AFC to go to the postseason. Selfishly, I am rooting for Buffalo this weekend because I want to see the Bills in the playoffs. And we have had a year where there's been so many great and good quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks, that unfortunately have gotten hurt. And I know Josh Allen, I don't think he's 100% right now, but he's still starting, he's still playing, and he could still play at a very high level. And that's why I want to see the Bills in the playoffs, because even though right now we're all hell-bent on the Ravens getting to the Super Bowl, and the Ravens are the team to beat, and they look like not only the team to beat in the AFC, but the team to beat in the NFL with the beatdown that they put down on the San Francisco 49ers 2 weeks ago in Santa Clara. So let's just say, though, maybe the Ravens get a little rusty with this week off, not playing Lamar this weekend, and they drop that divisional round game. Or they get to an AFC Championship game. It's not a lock that they're going to win just because they look like the team now. And when I look through the AFC, all right, the Dolphins we know can hang points on a lot of people. In the AFC North, outside of the Ravens, I give a lot of credit to the Cleveland Browns. I love that Browns defense led by Myles Garrett, and Joe Flacco is maybe the best story in the NFL right now. So Cleveland is alive. The AFC South, you could have 2 playoff teams, depending on what happens to the Jaguars when they win the division. And then The winner of the Colts and the Texans game also gets into the playoffs. I think the Colts and the Texans have been really good stories. But I don't think they're going to be a team, either of those teams, that do damage in the postseason. And Jacksonville has been one of the more disappointing teams in the league this year because we thought they were ready to take the next step, and they haven't been. And then outside of the Chiefs in the AFC West, I think the Chiefs have their problems too, that there's no one else alive in the AFC West right now. So you look at the AFC, maybe this is a year where if you do get Baltimore, who is the team that goes down, and that happens in a single elimination. This isn't all the other sports, outside of college football, where it's, you play a series in baseball, you play a series in the NBA, you play a series in hockey, you lose 2-3 games, you'll be okay just as long as you're the first one, depending on the round, to 3 or 4 wins, and you end up advancing. So anything could happen, and I hate to use this cliche, I hate to be a cliche guy, but anything could happen on any given Saturday or any given Sunday, right, in the NFL playoffs. And that's why as long as Buffalo has their quarterback in Josh Allen, even though this hasn't been pretty, they could still beat any team, not only in the AFC, but any team in the NFL. And I think the 3 things to watch in this game is, can Miami ease the panic button in this one? Because right now, it's wild. 2 weeks ago, the Dolphins had a great win up against the Cowboys. And then the Dolphins get obliterated and stomped out by the Baltimore Ravens. But in that loss, they also suffered an enormous loss with Bradley Chubb being done for the year. And earlier in the season, they also lost Jalen Phillips. They're 2 preeminent pass rushers and 2 guys that were going to be enormous for them to make this run. And they were just starting to survive life without Jalen Phillips. And now it's like, boom, you get hit with the double whammy of Bradley Chubb being out. It's like, oh, you got to restart this process again. So Miami loses this game. They don't win the AFC East. They're going to be on the road, probably in a cold environment for the playoffs, because they would be, the Browns are locked in as the 5. So in all likelihood, the Dolphins then are probably going to Kansas City. And I get it, it's Patrick Mahomes and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. But right now I would pick the Dolphins to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. So those emotions are going to be interesting. Where it was 2 weeks ago, awesome, they beat the Cowboys. Yeah, they got a big win. Then, they got smacked by the Ravens, the season's over. They lose to the Bills, it's going to be doubling down, the season's really over. And then watch them go wildcard weekend into Kansas City and outscore Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs with Tyreek Hill making his return to Arrowhead. And you know what? Out of all the matchups that we could potentially see in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and I would love to see Joe Flacco in the second round go back to Baltimore. I would love to see a playoff matchup where Matthew Stafford and the Rams are walking into Detroit to go up against the Lions. But we got robbed as football fans earlier this year because the NFL was a bunch of money-greedy pigs. And they said, we got to put Dolphins and Chiefs, which would have been a Chiefs home game, in Germany. I would love to see, love to see a matchup where we get Tyreek Hill walking into Kansas City with the Dolphins for the playoffs. That would be epic. That would be great. So the panic meter for the Finns is going to be interesting after this one. And then if the Bills make the playoffs or they miss the playoffs, what happens? Because I think a lot of people, and deservedly so, would say fire Sean McDermott. I don't think Brandon Beane and the Pagula family are firing Sean McDermott. I don't. So then what changes are you going to make? And there was a storyline that started the year, and it will pop back up again. And I'm not saying it's right that this is going to happen, but we haven't seen a 100-yard receiving game from Stephon Diggs since October 15th up against the Giants. Since then, 58 yards, 70 yards, 86 yards, 34, 27, 74, 24, 48, 29, 26. Those are low numbers. And we all know how important Stephon Diggs has been to Josh Allen. But the Bills haven't had a great season, and Stephon Diggs is not playing well. Now, he still had 1,000 yards. He still has 100 catches. He's still a big part of this team. But is there even though Stephon Diggs keeps on saying everything's good, and teammates love Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, with how that season started, Do you see the Stephon Diggs storyline pop back up when he's not getting the ball and either they miss the playoffs or they make the playoffs and they go home early? And does that Stephon Diggs story pop back up, or maybe they look to trade him, or maybe he wants to get traded this offseason? I think that's something to monitor as well. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll give you some NFL picks next. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. ,30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Last week was a good week in gambling. Can't always say that, but last week was pretty damn good. We gave you 3 picks on the show from yours truly. They were 3 winners. If you also factor in my college football plays, that was a 5-0 week because I gave you Michigan minus the 2.5 or 1.5 points. Either way, it hit because Michigan won the game by 7. And then I told you to put a lot of money on Washington plus 4.5. And last week we had the Texans laying 4. We had the Cardinals plus 12. And then I was on the Packers plus a point. And I was berated, absolutely berated by Ryan Horvat. And he told me from BetMGM tonight via BetQL, oh, you may want to rethink that pick. Oh, we may want to rethink Ryan Horvat on this show. That's why he's not joining us this week. No, he's actually on vacation. That would have been actually a good headline. I should have just rolled with that. Zach Gelb fires Ryan Horvat from his weekly appearance on the show. If you judge what's going on in the media world right now, that headline would be a very, very, very small pimple on a body compared to what's going on with Pat McAfee right now. So Pat McAfee had and I like Pat. He had the whole interview with Aaron Rodgers, of course. Aaron Rodgers goes after Jimmy Kimmel, says he's going to be on this Epstein list, basically accusing Jimmy Kimmel of being a pedophile. That's an accusation that everyone's like, I don't care what kind of tone it was bet. I don't care what beef that's going on between Kimmel and Rodgers. Who was in the right, who was in the wrong before that? You basically accuse someone of being a pedophile or having knowledge of sexual acts that were going on with minors. You know, those are some words that you don't recover from. Like, you can recover a lot in life. Like this world's pretty forgiving in second chances and third chances. You talk about pedophilia, scum of the earth. Like, you have no chance, nor should you, from ever recovering from that. So there's been a lot in the aftermath of this about will ESPN and McAfee, or will Disney and McAfee eventually split? And I think McAfee's great for ESPN and also College Game Day, because Kimmel, Disney, ABC, that's a big star of theirs as well. And now they're like fighting off of something that happened because of what was said on McAfee's show. So McAfee went on a rant today about an ESPN executive, Norby Williamson, saying he's trying to sabotage the show. He doesn't like the show, and he called him a rat. Now, there's sometimes, being in this business, where you make fun of your bosses, and the bosses are in on it. The bosses are okay for being a piñata. But there's a difference in saying, like, our dopey management, or, management doesn't want me to say this, well, screw them, blah, 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 blah. And management hearing that and knowing that there was no malicious intent. Unless the plan by ESPN, which I don't think is the case here, is to let's take the attention away from Kimmel and Rodgers and that fight, and now make it about McAfee going after some executive, which in the large scheme of things, like, people in the business will care about this, but I don't think many in the world actually care about Norby Williamson. So then you have like someone that's not really well known to the average person, where it's, McAfee's just crapping on this executive, and then that buries the nastiness of the story of, which is not true, where what Rodgers accused Jimmy Kimmel of. So I don't think they're intelligent enough at ESPN to concoct that theory. I believe you got a genuine Pat McAfee who is annoyed with some executives, and especially one executive in particular, Norby Williamson at ESPN, and now you got even more fighting. So at least it takes the story away from Rodgers basically accusing Kimmel to be a pedophile, and now it's okay, you have McAfee going all annoyed and being all upset at Norby Williamson. So stay tuned. This is going to be fun. I love seeing a fight between two people that I got nothing to do with. You know, I'm going to watch this entire segment when I get home. Maybe get a big bowl of popcorn, a lot of butter. You have to like lick the butter off your fingers too. And it's like disgusting. And you get like one piece of popcorn on that shirt. And you're like, oh, the shirt's ruined because of how much butter is on this popcorn. But I'm going to get a fat bowl of popcorn tonight. And I'm going to watch this this McAfee rant with Norby Williamson. Because I love a good radio rant. And I love a good radio fight. And I'm not afraid to ever get into those fights. I don't mind them whatsoever. You know, if you have to drop the gloves and do the dirty work, you got to do what the job calls to do. But I thoroughly enjoy it when it has to do with a different company. And I thoroughly enjoy it when it has to do with two people. One that I really like at McAfee and Norby Williamson, who I don't really know him at all. I have no relationship with him, but I do enjoy when there's a fight and you really have no skin in the game. So that's going to be fun, Santa.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, right? Oh, that popcorn's going to be delicious tonight. Maybe we'll get some pizza, too. Nah, you know what? Tonight's a diner night. I'm feeling the diner. Sometimes you just wake up. I have a brand new diner that opened up next to me about like 6-7 months ago. Oh, they make some great sandwiches. They do. And you know when you go to Cheesecake Factory and the menu's like 3,000 pages long, you have no clue how to order off the menu because I don't love reading. I don't. I do not.
I'm surprised you know how to.
Well, I know how to read, but I don't love reading. I just don't have the attention span. Like, I get into a really good book. I prefer that book to be an audio version, right? Where they read the book to you. Like
I think you are a very smart man, Zach.
Danny, thanks so much, Danny Cannell. I am a very intelligent man, according to Danny Cannell. But when you have to sit down, and I'm part of the problem in society, I have a short attention span. And you ask me to read something that's very long, it's tough for me to keep that attention to detail unless I'm fascinated by it. But how I am with the cheesecake menu at the Cheesecake Factory is the same way with this new diner. It's like after 3 pages, I'm like, I can't get to page 4, 5, 6, 7 this go around, or 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 this go around. Like this menu at the diner looks like the play sheet that Mike McCarthy has calling plays. It's crazy. So what I did was the first time I went there, I looked at pages 1, 2, and 3. Then the next time I looked at 4, 5, 6, then 6, 7, 8. And then tonight I'll look at 9, 10, 11. And I pick a new item each and every time. I may have counted out of order there, but that's fine. Anyway, enough of me, enough of you. Let's try to help us. Let's get to some NFL picks. All righty, we were 3-0 last week. If you factor in the college football, 5-0. I hate betting week 18 because if the team is out of it, you never know what type of effort you're going to get. And you also, even if the team's in it, you never know how teams respond to pressure. So I'm going to start off with the game that's on Saturday, tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. It's the Steelers and the Ravens. The Ravens are a 3-point underdog, but they're not playing Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley, who's played before and has played well for the Baltimore Ravens, nearly beat the Bengals in the postseason last year before he thought he was like Michael Jordan going all Air Jordan at the 2-yard line where they fumbled the ball and it got taken, did get a go for a touchdown. So he has experience. But the Steelers I like in this spot. I like their defense. They have found something recently with Mason Rudolph, even though he won't be the long-term starting quarterback there, nor should he. But I do like the Steelers to win this game. The 3 points does concern me because you know the Ravens will still be chippy even though they locked up the number 1 seed. They won't have Lamar Jackson this one. You got to be uncomfortable sometimes though to win money, and this is one of those spots. I will take the Steelers laying the 3 points. All righty. Game number 2. I'm going with another favorite. Nick Mullins back as the starter for the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, that's a no from me, dog. I'm out of the Minnesota Vikings. And you get an annoyed Lions team that got screwed by the officials last week. And I saw they've already put up their NFC North Championship banner and people are like freaking out. Why? This is not the Colts that they raised the championship banner for being AFC participants, for participating in the AFC Championship game and being AFC finalists. They won their division. They've won the Central before, but they've never won the NFC North. So I have no problem with the Lions hanging their banner. It does seem early. I feel like teams usually do that in the offseason. But the Lions haven't had many things to cheer for. So I'm not going to rain on their parade because they put this banner up because they're proud of it. I think you see a motivated Detroit Lions team this weekend and an annoyed Detroit Lions team that's looking to bite off some kneecaps because of the way that Brad Allen just screwed them last week. And I think Brad Allen's officiating the game on Saturday. I believe Brad Allen should actually be doing this Vikings-Lions game. Like, put him back in front of the Lions and make sure he actually reports people as eligible this time. So give me the Lions laying 3.5 at home up against the Minnesota Vikings. And the final game, I think this number's low. I'm going to go to a team that I have zero confidence in. Zero. I do not believe in this team. I think this team is going to quickly go home in the playoffs. But the team they're going up against, their coach keeps on taking a beating in the media. First, they go after his weight because he didn't try Tommy Cutlett's mom's chicken cutlets. And yet a reporter saying, oh, how about those cookies that you stuff your fat face with? What diet are you talking about? And then today, Brian Daboll, poor, I can't say little, but poor old Brian Daboll is just saying, oh, Porter has nice hair. And the response from the reporter is, what, are you jealous that you don't have these luscious locks? So I think it's a bad spot for the Giants. I don't like what I'm hearing from the Eagles. I did like the A.J. Brown comments this week, but other than that, it's been a lot of negativity. So I think this is a panic line where if this was a line from 4 or 5 weeks ago, this would be a double-digit spread in favor of the Eagles. And the Eagles did not look good 2 weeks ago up against the Giants either. But I will take the Eagles. Once again, you got to be a little uncomfortable, win some money. I'll take the Eagles laying 5.5 points. So here are the picks real quickly. Steelers laying 3, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. I have the Lions laying 3.5, and then give me the EAGLES Eagles laying 5.5 points. Those are the picks for Week 18 in the National Football League. We'll take a time out here on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back with our Ask the Pros question and also delve into a little Coach of the Year conversation as well. Update time first. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Week 18 of the NFL season, there are still playoff spots to be determined. Both South divisions still up in the air. The Bucs are in Charlotte to face the woeful Panthers and will have Baker Mayfield, who is good to go despite being listed as questionable with sore ribs. Trevor Lawrence is throwing today to test his injured shoulder. The Jaguars have yet to make a determination on their quarterback, but may have to lock up the division without him. The Jags win, and they are in the postseason. He could be a game-time decision on Sunday. The Raiders will be without Josh Jacobs this weekend. The Seattle Mariners are bringing back Mitch Haniger as well as Anthony DeSclafani in return. Former Cy Young Award winner Robbie Ray heads to the Giants. He is expected to miss half of the season after having Tommy John surgery. The hottest team in the NBA isn't any of the conference leaders, nor is it the defending champs, but it's the Indiana Pacers who have won 5 in a row after back-to-back wins earlier this week over the Bucks. They're trying to be a team to be reckoned with as they go for win number 6 tonight, or win number 6 in a row. The Clippers and Pelicans have each won 4 straight and will meet in New Orleans. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it's time to answer or Ask the Pros question of the day. And it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. We have a question here. Jake from East Lansing says, Zach, who do you think is Coach of the Year in the NFL? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. You can thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Coach of the Year, I think it's Kevin Stefanski. Now, remember I said to start the show, sometimes you give an opinion and then the next week, or you give an opinion and then 2-3 weeks later you change that. I'm 98% sure. About 3.5 weeks ago, I did a Sports Minute where I said the coach of the year is between three people: Stefanski, Steichen, and Ryans. And I made the case for Steichen to win the award because he's doing so with Gardner Minshew as his quarterback. And for most of the season, Jonathan Taylor has been out. But the Browns have been so outstanding where they've lost not only Deshaun Watson, but Nick Chubb and two of their starting offensive linemen, both tackles. And they are locked into the 5 seed, and they already have 11 wins on the season. I think Stefanski's got to win the award because no one in the AFC South, between the Jaguars, and Doug Peterson's not up for Coach of the Year this year, but the Jaguars, the Texans, and also Indianapolis have separated themselves from the pack. And that could change this weekend, right? Jaguars win. They're in the playoffs as AFC South champs. The winner of the Colts and Texans game also makes the playoffs as well. But this division was up for grabs the last few weeks. And, DeMeco Ryans didn't always have C.J. Stroud. But you look at Stefanski, I think he's deserving of winning Coach of the Year for the second time of his career. And the other names that I think people could consider, it wouldn't surprise me about Dan Campbell getting a lot of play. But the reason why I wouldn't give it to Dan Campbell is because before the season, people were optimistic about the Lions. People looked at Detroit and they said they should win the division. They should be in the playoffs. And they did what was expected out of them. Now, I get it. They're in line to win their first playoff game since the 1991 season. They've won their first division since 1993 when it was the NFC Central, now the NFC North. So I can understand why people are going to say Dan Campbell, but I feel like a lot of times with Coach of the Year, it's either you have an all-time great season where your team is just so much more dominant than everybody else and you were so outstanding, regardless what the expectations were, you get the award. Or it's the team's coach that exceeds the expectations the most. So, like, the Lions, they were supposed to be good this year. They met the expectation. Teams like the Colts, the Texans, they weren't talked about. DeMeco Ryans and Shane Steichen both exceeded expectations and then some this year. But you look at the Browns were a fringe playoff team. Fringe playoff team. But if I were to tell you before the start of the season, now it sounds like we're about to do a 30 for 30 commercial, but if I were to tell you before the start of the season that the Browns would have lost Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson and 2 starting offensive linemen, you would say there's not a chance they would make the playoffs. Now, you could also argue, right, with like the Texans and the Colts, no one thought they'd make the playoffs either, and one of those teams are going to make the playoffs. But the Browns have been more outstanding than the Texans and then the Colts. So that's why I would give the Coach of the Year award to Kevin Stefanski. And here's another name that I'll just toss out there. I'm telling you right now, I believe Stefanski should win Coach of the Year. But should John Harbaugh win it? Should John Harbaugh get votes? And the reason why I ask this is because when the season started, I don't think a lot of people viewed the way and talked about the Ravens in the way that their season played out. Like, I think most people before the season started said the Ravens could make the playoffs if, and there's once again that word, if Lamar Jackson is healthy. But you got to remember, they brought in a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken. Lamar did get paid. They were telling you before the year they're going to throw the ball more. And it's like, oh, well, Lamar ended the last 2 seasons on the sideline, and he was hurt. He wasn't healthy. So Harbaugh this year has not only coached his team really well, but the Ravens have also exceeded expectations. But I think because of the brand of the Ravens, And the Ravens usually getting the benefit of the doubt and being looked at as one of the better organizations, or as they say in Canada, organizations, in the NFL, that Harbaugh's not going to get probably the votes that he should. He's done an outstanding job. And not only did that team run away with the division, they are the number 1 seed, and they're the best team in football. And even someone being a pro Lamar guy for all these years, and even though I want to see Lamar Jackson have a ton of success, you see the way how they operated things the last 2 weeks where they annihilated the Niners. And then if I said that they annihilated the Niners, then what the heck did they do to the Miami Dolphins? Because it was worse what they did to the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins have been one of the better teams in the NFL this year, and the 49ers were perceived to be the best team in the NFL this year. So when I look at Coach of the Year, I think there's 5 names that we need to consider, and there's 5 names that we need to talk about. Yeah, Dan Campbell can be talked about. John Harbaugh needs to be talked about. Shane Steichen needs to be talked about. DeMeco Ryans needs to be talked about. But ultimately, I don't think anyone has a better case to make than the one that Kevin Stefanski has done. When you factor in exceeding expectations, all the injuries, and then also his team winning 11 games, and, we'll see if they win this weekend. Not really playing a lot of people, but if they do win, they're at 12 wins. But even if they don't win and they're 11-6, that was so outstanding that Stefanski should win Coach of the Year. And I don't want to hear anyone next year. When Deshaun Watson comes back, and he still has a lot of work to do, off the field, but on the field I'm talking about, where he returned for the last, 4, 5, 6 games last year, extremely rusty, did not look good. Then for most of this year, he's either hurt or did not play well until that final game before his season ended. Ironically, that's when he played his best. When Watson struggles at times next year, let's be fair. Don't be that person that next year says, Stefanski's no good. Stefanski's overrated. Stefanski's a dope. Fire Stefanski. I will promise you this. I will make one promise right now for the rest of the year. I will not call for Kevin Stefanski to be fired regardless of what happens next year with the Cleveland Browns, because he proved his worth this year. And the Browns, we know they rotate through coaches and quarterbacks. This guy's about to win his second Coach of the Year award. How the heck do you fire a guy for the Cleveland Browns that has won 2 Coach of the Year awards, assuming he gets it done this year, since 2020? So let's put the blame on Deshaun if it fails next year, not Kevin Stefanski. And he has done a wonderful, and I mean a wonderful job with this team. And also, you know what this conversation shows too? Like getting away from Stefanski. But you look at the 2 other guys, DeMeco Ryans and Shane Steichen, things could turn around rather quickly in the NFL. No one thought the Texans would be a playoff team. No one thought the Colts would be a playoff team. No one even thought these teams would be above 500. You get the right coach or you draft the right quarterback or both, you could turn around your organization very, very quickly. And you know what? I like to uplift people on a Friday. I like to end the show and the week on a positive note on a Friday. That's my message to all you bad football teams. To all you lousy, pathetic, just disgusting, disgraceful football teams. The Texans and Colts, how quickly they've turned it around in an isolated year. Should be hope for the teams that we're looking at right now, like 5-11 Tennessee, the 5-11 Chargers, the 4-12 New England Patriots, Carolina. I don't know if I give you any hope if we're just being real. But all these bad teams, because your owner sucks, but all these bad teams, I told you to end the show in a positive way, but all these bad teams, if you make the right coaching hire or you draft the right quarterback, it doesn't take that long to turn around in the National Football League. All righty, that is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be here for you on Sunday for 8 hours, noon Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. We can't wait for Week 18 of Eye on Football. And then on Monday, if the weather cooperates, if the airlines cooperate. I will be in Houston for the national championship game. We'll be here for the Zach Gelb Show in H-Town, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Manny Rodriguez, thank you. Moist Mike, thank you. Each and every one of you for calling, listening, tweeting. Thank you as well. We'll talk to you on Sunday. We'll talk to you Monday, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
I think you are a very smart man, Zach.